Alright guys, welcome to the channel. And in the previous video, if you follow closely, we talked about classes in Python. And if you look through the videos, we looked at what are classes and we jumped right into our Jupyter notebook to give you code examples of how the class work. By the way, if you are just coming across this channel, kindly like, subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up to keep us going. In today's video, we are looking at more like a continuation of that class, of that tutorial. We are looking at instance and objects in Python. Okay, so basically, if you look at what we did earlier, we talked about class. That basically a class is a sketch or a prototype of an object, and it contains all the details of, the description of what an object will look like. Basically, let's say if you want to build a house, you have a sketch of that house. That is what we looked at. And if you want to create a database for a student, you have each entity, every student in mind, talking about their ID, their sex, their department, their level. All of this you should put into consideration. So what is an instance? An instance of a class is the individual object created from a class. Like I said earlier, if you want to create a class of animals, creating an object will mean that having a particular animal in that class. Animal is too generic because you have different kind of animals. So if you want to create an object from that class, you have, let's say, a dog. That is an entity, a specific instance of a class. If you want to have a class of student, let's say John is a name and it's an entity of a particular student. All right, so basically that is what we mean when we talk about a class instance. It's a specific occurrence or realization of a class. And if you have let's say, for instance, you have a class of animal, like I said earlier, is a class. And if you want to create an instance of that class, which is an object, by the way, we're gonna we explain object shortly, is a specific animal. Let's say a dog, a goat, a cow, a chicken, a hen, whatever. It's just a specific instance, an entity, just one particular object or one particular example extracted from that class. Okay, so yeah, we'll be having a cat. So each instance have its own unique attribute. Like I explained earlier, if you have maybe in a class of students, you could have, individual object for each student, student 1, student 2, student 3, having their specific name, their specific department, ID, which is different from every other student. So basically, that is what that is all about. So before we really jump right into Jupyter, let's quickly look at object, what an object is, because shortly we are going to move to Jupyter to work out the code examples. You can see this is what we looked at the last time classes, and we gave just an instance which we will continue from. So let's quickly do look at object before we jump back here. So what's an object? An object is an instance of a class and can be called a class object. Okay, like I'll be explaining, you have animal as a class. An object will be creating a dog, which is an instance. That is an object of that class. A dog, that's one instance, one object. A goat, that's an animal, another instance of that class. A cow, that's another animal, which is an instance of that class. So basically, that is what we mean when we talk about object. It's a real world entity, have the attribute. A dog will have a different color, a different set of behavioral attitude, which is different from every other dog. All right, a student, we have different behavioral attitude, different eye color, different height from every other student. So I believe, that is what we are looking at. So I believe you're excited. Let's jump right into Jupyter Notebook as we work out the code examples. So we have an instance here, and we created for one student. Oh, so basically what we are going to be creating, we are going to be having just a continuation of this, and we create more like a database, just a small database of student, and we create instances for one student. Then we have maybe for up to 100 student. All right, in that class, and we create individual object for the student. Let's say here we have different attributes: name, id. Yeah, so maybe we take three of them: name, id, and the department, so to work with, so that it will not be too lengthy. So the code we are going to write now, we create a system to manage students, their details, assign them a department in a structured way, more like a database structure. So we jump right in. After the code, I'm going to explain. After the writing the code, I will explain what it means. So I believe you are following closely. So let's do this, guys. All right, now that we have the code, guys, if you look through it, we created more like a database that manages student information. So I'm just going to do for one student. So I'll hit shift enter. So it's going to print name, student one, id one, department. Okay, so basically I'm going to explain what we have here, and we are going to run it a couple of times for maybe 10 students, and the max it can take is 100 students as specified in the code. So we have some classes here which I'm going to explain. First, we have the student class definition. This is a class definition. Then we have the student database class definition. We defined another class here, as you can see here. We defined another class. Then we here, okay, here we have basically a method that add student to the database, like you have here. This is a method that adds student to the database. Then we now have another function called a method that prints the student information. Then we have the initialization and usage. So lastly, we are printing information of our student in the database. We started with one, like you see here. For I, this loop, we are loop tree one student and less than one. So this is just an instance for just a one student. So let's look deeply to what we have here, and I will explain some concept, even though we have not gone into init method. But you have this init, define init, this underscore init. This stands for initialization and it's called the init method. What does it do? The init method is a special method in Python classes. It helps set up the initial state of an object. So as you can see, it's helping to set up the initial state of an object. If you are used to function, you understand that when you define a function, you have this. So this is called init method, and it's a special function. Like we said, a method is a special function associated with a class or instance of a class. So you can see it's starting with self here, self. All right. So you say, how come about this? Self is a reference to the instance of a class. It is the first parameter, of every method. And what did I say method is? A method is a function in Python. Okay. So it is the first parameter. This self is the first parameter of every method in a class, and it's used to access the variables and method within the class. So after that, you have this variable which are passed as parameters, student ID, and the department. All right, department. Okay, so basically we have that. So this just loop through if print database cannot add more student when it get to 100, and here we are going to, this is going to print out the information of the student according to the number we have here. So for this instance, we are just testing with one student. That is why it's returning information for one student. So I could go ahead to check for, let's say, 5 students, less than 5. Then I'll come here and do it will loop through 5. So if I do shift enter, you see this is going to print for 5 students. And again, if I do the maximum, I do less than 100 and come here less than 100. If I do shift enter, it's going to print for 100 students. As you can see, it's going to do that for 100 students. But there's something which we are not getting right. As you can see, for department, every other thing is cool here. For department is printing department. So we can go ahead to add the department, more like have a database of department for the student. So I'll just go ahead to create that. So just watch us do that here again. So here we have, okay, here this student database. I'm going to add self.department department. Okay, so equal to, and it's going to be a list. It's going to be a list. So I'll do this. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to add the department. It's going to loop through. So I'll come here again as student, where we are adding the student. So come here and add this here. So here I'll do department, sorry, department equals self dot department. Then I'll pass this length, which is going to reference the length. Then we do self.student, self.student. Then we are looking for modular, so it's going to look through the length of more like the length of the department. We do self.department. Okay, so I'm going to close this off, and I close that list. Okay, so I'm going to close that off. Then I'll go ahead to, again, I'll do student dot department equals department. Department. Okay, so if we got this rightly, then I'm going to come here to pass. Let's have a list of departments you have in mind. Which one do you want us to put here? Let's say law department. We have another one. Let's just do English. Then we have another one, not my favorite, biochemistry. Then we have another one. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to add a comma there. Okay. All right, so then let's just add two more. Let's say French. Add a comma. Then lastly, let's have what else? History. All right, so yeah, this is enough. So let's see what we have. So first, I'll have to start with one student as usual. Okay, for the for loop, again, I have to test this with one student. Yeah, so let's see what we have here. Okay, I'll just fix that. Okay, so all right, let's look through this. Let's see where the error is. All right, I think here is self.department. So here is self.department. Do shift enter. All right, it's going to print that. So as you can see, name student one, ID one, department law. So this is for one student. Let's go on to do this for 5 students. So I'll come here to the part of this code. I'll do 5. All right, then I'll come here. Again, I'll do 5, shift enter. So it's going to print, you can see, going to print for 5 students. So we could go ahead to print for 100. So matter of coming here, do less than 100. Then I come here. I could do 100. So shift enter. So if you take it down, it's going to, you see, it's going to print for 100 to the database for student for 100 of them. So their name, their name, student one ID, and the rest of them. So it's going on. All right. So that is it, guys. It's amazing. I hope you grab something from this tutorial talking about objects and instances. And in the next video, we are going to talk about the method in Python.